What's up guys, it's Scoopman 5000. Today we're back for another action figure review, and today is a first for the channel. We're looking at our first ever MAFEX figure, the Dark Knight Returns Triumphant Batman. And like I said, never held a MAFEX in my hand before, but seeing this figure, seeing the images online, specifically this image in the promo artwork, this thing pops right out of the original pages of Dark Knight Returns, and the style and the artwork of Frank Miller, some of my favorite for Batman. I love and I cherish the Mattel figures that I have, but this is really, truly an upgrade to those. This is a $100 premium import version of the Dark Knight Returns Batman. And there was a black costume version. I did skip that. I might have to get it now. There's a Superman, there's a Joker. This whole line is really growing, but for now this is going to be my entry point, and I could already tell I'm going to love this figure. For the packaging, MAFEX, as far as I can tell, their packaging is not always the best, but this at least is minimalistic, and it looks good. It looks a bit cheap, but it does get the job done. Certainly better than some early MAFEX figures I've seen. You got the character artwork in the front, Dark Knight Returns, Triumphant. On the top, you get a little bit more window in the Dark Knight Returns. On the side, Dark Knight Returns with Old Man Bruce. On the other one, a sideways artwork, kind of mimicking the cover art. And then on the back, you're seeing kind of a spread of all the different heads and poses and accessories and all the makes. But with packaging out of the way, simple as it may be, let's go ahead, let's take a look at Dark Knight Triumphant Batman. And here is Triumphant Batman out of the packaging, and being an expensive import, he does come with tons of accessories. We'll start out with the MAFEX figure stand. This is my first, obviously, being my first MAFEX figure. And I find that it doesn't really hold the weight of the figure, although I think you're supposed to tighten the screws yourself. I don't have a screwdriver on hand, but I'll do that, and hopefully this stand will do its work and get him in some nice Dark Knight Returns flying lightning poses. This is also a good opportunity to show off that wingspan of the cape, the wired cape that it is, and we'll get more into it further in the review. As for alternate hands, he's got plenty. He comes included with a pair of open action style hands. He's also got a pair of some more straight open hands, and both of these have the right knuckles exposed just like they are in the book. And for all of these hands, they have the right knuckles kind of broken up and exposed like a lot of the bat suit on this figure. He's also got a pair of somewhat open hands, and with those, you're also going to be able to kind of chuck one of the 4 included batarangs and kind of make some Wolverine style hands. You don't quite get enough batarangs to make both hands with 3 each, but still it's a cool visual and one that is straight out of the books. And then finally another pair of hands that look very similar to the fists that are on the figure, but these are meant to hold one singular batarang in more of a throwing pose. And then finally we're also getting an alternate Old Man Bruce Wayne head sculpt, complete with a black eye. He's also got a separate neck piece entirely. You take out the whole neck and the head, and with that you're going to want to attach the downed cowl that goes over the cape. And that leaves us with our big, beefy, triumphant Batman. Just a absolute menace of a figure. And just like straight out of the Frank Miller artwork, this dude looks like an absolute tank, just wide as hell, thick as hell, and ready to kick some ass. And just seeing the images, like I said, this figure, I think, jumps so much out of that cover from Dark Knight Triumphant that I had to have it. But with that, this figure being mostly reused from that original, I'm probably going to have to pick that one up because I can tell already I'm very impressed with the kind of a whole assembly and the construction of this figure. There's no better place to start than at the head sculpt here. And again, I keep reiterating this, but straight out of the original books. I think if anything, it should have been a little bit bloody, but maybe that's how they do it in Japan with MAFEX. Maybe they're not doing blood all over their figures. That's really the only inaccuracy I can really pick out. Here it's the bright blue. The original release was in the black, and we're also getting another bright blue with the bright yellow bat symbol. But really great. That bright blue has some little black wash accents in it. The eyes are outlined as well. And then when we get to the mouth, I mean, you could definitely see the damage that he's taken on his lip here. This dude's been knocked to shit, punched out multiple times, and that's really the theme of the Triumphant Batman. Just all the battle scars, all the tearing, and all the wear and dirt all over him. This dude's been in some action, and it's been recently. So really an amazing expression, probably the most menacing, the most frightening Batman I'm going to have in my collection for a long time. And I think they captured this whole look perfectly on the head sculpt. And bringing in Old Man Bruce for a second, getting a better look at that, I think they definitely did a great job as well on there. Really taking the Frank Miller artwork, bringing it into an action figure. And as for the rest of them, I'm pretty sure most of this is going to be reused, but there has to be new tooling because of all the rips and tears that are in his suit. We're going to have to get his big cape out of the way anyway, so let's look at that first. And you can see this thing is pleated. It's kind of getting a bit unruly just because I've been playing around with it, but this thing has a wire going all the way through it on each side, over here and over here. So if you want to get him in some real extreme flight poses, that's definitely possible. It's almost too much cape for me to handle. I feel like I'm inexperienced with the wired cape, and with so much large cape on a figure, I'm gonna have to really fiddle with this, maybe look at some guides and some other figure photography, really get a hold on how to pose this thing, because the amount of cloth, the amount of material that's here, definitely intimidating. So we'll try to fold that back, because we are missing out on some great details with the cape covering it. Most notably, the large shoulder tear, the lacerations on there, and there's definitely some red tones in there, but if you look at the artwork, it's definitely supposed to be scraped and bloody, and there's blood coming out of his mouth, so you're missing that mark. But that's, I guess, very easily added if you're willing to customize a $100 figure. But at least there's some difference in red tones here. The skin definitely looks damaged. The other shoulder as well has a smaller tear in it. I think the arms for the rest of it is pretty stock. These cuts, these kind of opened up knuckles, these are sculpted in. They could have just painted this, and on any other $20 American figure, you probably would have got that. But that's the import difference, I guess. And I will say all the joints feel very smooth, and they feel firm, but they feel like they're gonna move around. Swapping the hands is very different from what I'm used to with kind of $20 action figures. I will say swapping the neck's a bit scary, but once you do it, I guess it's fine. And I'm not really gonna be using Old Man Bruce anyway, so this is gonna stay pretty much how it is. Bat symbol in the middle, big and beefy, just like the Frank Miller comics, but with major tears through it. Dude looks like he just fought Wolverine, and you're seeing the exposed chest of Old Man Bruce Wayne. Also, I didn't mention it, I don't think I did, a great black wash over this dark gray kind of suit. It doesn't look like a toy. A lot of these $20 action figures, when you get them, sometimes, you know, customizers take it into their own hands. They add detail, they add a wash, but MAFEX went ahead. They really washed in every single wrinkle and crinkle and crease, and it really looks stellar because of it. You really get all the detail right out of the packaging. The trunks are a bit thin. I guess that's to allow for some articulation. Even the yellow belt has seen some dirt and some grime introduced to it on all the little folds in the pockets. And then the blue boots, even the blue has a slight kind of shading to it, which is very appreciated. But overall, that's going to cover the aesthetic of our Dark Knight Triumphant Batman. I think about as perfect as you can get for a Frank Miller inspired figure, but still making it into a modern action figure and making it one that can pose around. We're going to test that now with articulation. The head is looking up pretty decently with the combo of the neck and the head, and with that looking down, burying the chin just slightly, and we are getting some very impressive major tilt going on here. That's what you like to see on a import quality pose around figure. This is really going to get so much range of motion, and if you're a real talented poser, real talented photographer, you're gonna have a field day with this guy. Torso's got a ball joint and a ball joint. Going back that far, unfortunate gap here, but maybe he's not meant to go back all the way. The forward is very impressive. You're getting a gap in the back here, but odds are the cape is going to be kind of blocking that. But this could be kind of a coming in, drop kick, some kind of pose like that. Maybe put the arms back. Speaking of which, the cape is pretty cleverly hiding some very impressive butterfly joints. All sorts of movement there. You love to see that. And then all the usual standard kind of articulation we're used to. Shoulder joints, upper bicep cut, double jointed elbow is not the best, but also not the worst. And then a ball joint, almost like the McFarlane's, but a lot more smooth on the wrist. The legs are going to split out in something, again, that's reminding me of McFarlane. Maybe I'm just buying too much McFarlane product and everything looks like it. But this does have the added bonus of a drop-down hip, even though it's leaving gaps, and I don't necessarily like that. And these legs seem kind of hard to put back into place. He's not really kicking back because of the trunks, unless you want to create major gappage like you are there. Forward can go up that far, but along with rotation, he could really turn his whole ass around. Double jointed knee is so beefy and muscular that it's not going to really go all the way back, but that's pretty decent. You could still get some very good flight and action poses with that. No cuts on the thigh or the boot or anything like that. Another ball joint style on the foot. Unfortunately, that means there's not really an ankle rocker, but I guess you could kind of make up for that with this joint. And then you're also getting a good old toe hinge. But that is Triumphant Batman all but taken care of. But before we take it home, let's of course go over some comparison. And let's start them out with some figure arts for whatever reason. I wanted to see how these guys look together, but it seems like the figure arts is definitely skewing too small, or the MAFEX is too big. Although maybe you can get away with it with some female figure arts. Here's Harley Quinn from Suicide Squad and WW84 Wonder Woman. When we bring in McFarlane, you could see he's definitely going to be too short against Red Hood and Thomas Wayne Batman. When we get to Mattel, here's where things are getting a bit more close in size. We'll bring in the New 52 Doomsday and the Doomed Superman. All these guys have similar body types and shapes, and I think this works pretty well. But of course, that is just a tease to get into the Dark Knight Returns Mattel figures. And I think this works pretty well. You can see my Batman's a bit squat. If he stood up even farther, it would make a bit more sense. But I don't mind Batman being maybe slightly shorter than these two. Especially when you get into action poses and things like that, I think this is going to work great. So for Batman's enemies of the Dark Knight, I think this looks pretty good. For some other Dark Knight characters, here's Armored Batman, who appropriately is bigger, but again, I think that sort of works. Here's Carrie Kelly, who might be too tall for this Batman, and the Dark Knight Wonder Woman as well. And then finally, the most direct comparison that you can make is with the Dark Knight Mattel Batmans, or as they're nicknamed, Motu Batman, because all these figures I've just shown you using this body type are based on the Masters of the Universe figures, but I think that really translated well into Frank Miller versions, similarly wide, bulky bodies, and you can see the proportions are relatively similar on these guys. The Mattels are just a bit taller. Mattel's always kind of skewed towards like 6.5 inches when it came to certain figures like this. The figure arts was a bit small, so I guess MAFEX really is true 6-inch. And overall, that does do it for the MAFEX Dark Knight Triumphant Batman, and here's my attempt at getting him in that classic pose. I don't think I did the best job, but I'll try to refine it as I go along in my new adventure, I guess, collecting these MAFEX figures. Overall, I'm impressed with the quality and everything like that. The sculpt is top-notch. I really love and appreciate the wash of paint on the figures. And overall, Dark Knight Batman, definitely some of my favorite artwork of Batman specifically. That style, that look of Batman is really my favorite. It's why I have all those Mattels. It's why I picked up this guy, and why I'm going to continue to collect figures from this line. I'm definitely going to get that Armored Batman. Maybe have to go track down the original black suit. And that's not to mention Superman, Joker, Carrie Kelly, and any other figures they want to throw at us from this MAFEX line. I think I'm going to be on board, and unfortunate for my finances, I'm going to have to add MAFEX to my shopping list from now on. As always, I'm going to take some figure photography of this guy, and you can see my library on Instagram, scoopman_5000, but that does do it for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next action figure review.